Hey, let's talk about the endgame in Black 2 and White 2. In October of 2012, Pokemon Black 2 and Pokemon White 2 were released in North America. And while not the first time they had made continuations of the games, Black 2 and White 2 were the first to bill themselves as proper sequels. Gold and Silver were sequels to Red and Blue/Green, to the point that they were actually known as Pocket Monsters 2 in development. However, they dropped the sequel angle and instead released as their own separate titles. Black 2 and White 2, on the other hand, fully billed themselves as continuations of Black and White, keeping the same region as the last games, but adding an entirely new story, new characters, new areas, and even new Pokemon. Gold and Silver let you battle the gym leaders from the last games, which was cool, but Black 2 and White 2 let you interact with the characters from the last game on a much more personal level. But let's talk about the endgame. Just like from Platinum to Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the battle subway in Black 2 and White 2 is the exact same as it was in Black and White, with no changes between them aside from your character sprite. That goes for the Battle Institute as well, as it's also the exact same thing from the previous two games. However, they did add a new facility for you to try out. You make your way through the game as usual and you come into Driftvale City. As you explore, you may come to where the cold storage was in the last game. However, now the bridge is missing, and instead it's been replaced by a fancy-looking tunnel. If you go inside, a man tells you that the Pokemon World Tournament isn't ready yet, and you should go to the Driftvale City gym. So, you go to the gym, you make your way through it, you stomp Clay, and then he walks you outside, and after an argument with your rival, asks if you've heard of the Pokemon World Tournament. You know, the place where trainers from all over the world gather. And then he says he'll see you on the south end of town. So you take the hint and return to the newly constructed tunnel. After you pass through, you enter the PWT, which obviously stands for Pokemon World Tournament. As you continue forward, you're dragged into the tutorial for the tournament. Granted, you can skip it temporarily, but you'll be forced into it whenever you return. The tutorial tournament does what it's supposed to. It shows you how the tournament works, which also lets me explain it too. The tournament is, in practice, a very simple concept. You choose a tournament style, you choose a format, those being single battle, double battle, triple battle, and rotation battle, and then you battle in single elimination rounds. There are 8 participants per tournament, so you'll be fighting in 3 rounds per tournament. And once you finish, you're awarded BP based on the format and on the style. And that's it. That is the whole premise of this facility. And while this may sound like the most boring facility that they have managed so far, I actually think it's one of the better ones that they've made. And it's not because of what you're doing, it's because of who you're challenging. Now, in all honesty, you could just check out now, as the rest of this is just going to be me talking about the exact same thing with variants. So if you want to leave, I don't blame you. Still here? Okay, let's get into this. There are 2 attendants inside of the World Tournament building. Lady Right is only ready once you've entered the Hall of Fame, so we'll start with Lady Left. She offers you 3 tournaments: the Driftvale Tournament, the Mixed Tournament, and the Rental Tournament. All 3 of these act as the normal trains in the Battle Subway, a challenge that beginner players can attempt with a slight challenge, but not the true challenge of the facility. And the attendants can even give you the rules for the tournaments they offer. The first of Lady Left's tournaments is the Driftvale Tournament. The Driftvale Tournament has similar, but slightly different rules from a normal facility. All Pokemon participating will be set to level 25, you can use any Pokemon you want, and you can use any items you want. Now, saying that you can use any Pokemon you want means that there is no ban list. You want to start this tournament with a Mewtwo, Groudon, and Zekrom? Go for it, that's allowed. And saying you can use any items is very similar. You want all 3 of these Pokemon to use an Expert Belt? Make it so, that's allowed. Or you just want to run 3 Deoxys, each with a choice specs? You do you, man, that's also allowed. Now let's talk about the participants of the Driftvale Tournament. There are 15 participants that the game will pull from to make the bracket, and 5 of those are the gym leaders that you would have met up to this point. Now, again, this is an entry-level tournament, something not meant to be a stiff challenge. Therefore, all of your Pokemon will be using some unevolved Pokemon and absolutely no held items. Like, look at Roxy here. Her team has some doubles, 2 Pokemon who aren't fully evolved, and no held items to speak of. Granted, she can still use this team, and does so fairly well, but her team could obviously be better. And one more thing about Lady Left's tournaments. In these tournaments, you always know the path your battles will take. The first round is always against one of the 10 random participants, while your next 2 are always against gym leaders. Everyone else in the tournament are just placeholder sprites without any actual teams, to make it feel like the tournament is always packed. Once you complete this tournament, you're awarded 1 BP in singles and doubles, and 2 BP in triples and rotations. Moving on to Lady Left's second tournament, the Mixed Tournament. The rules for this tournament are very similar to the Driftvale tournament. Set level 50, any Pokemon, and any items. The twist here is that before you start a battle, you and your opponent each get to see each other's teams, and then you get to pick one Pokemon out from that team. Then you trade the Pokemon you picked for the entire duration of the battle. This can make for some extremely interesting battles, especially if your opponent took your ace. Imagine after all of your hard training, suddenly you have to fight the very thing that you made with no constraints against you. If you've trained them well, that's going to be the hardest thing that you have to fight. Triple battles and rotation battles allow you and your opponent to swap 2 Pokemon instead of 1, increasing the challenge even further. Finishing this tournament will award you with 1 BP for singles and doubles, and 2 BP for triples and rotations. And finally, we have Lady Left's last tournament, the Rental Tournament. This tournament also sets everything to level 50, but none of the participants, including you, get to use your own Pokemon. Instead, the game will make 3 teams using the pool of normal subway Pokemon, and you get to choose one to use in the tournament. All of the participants that you face will be in the same boat, random Pokemon from the normal train pool and nothing else. Winning this tournament will also award you with 1 BP in singles and doubles, and 2 BP in triples and rotations. Now that we've covered Lady Left, let's enter the Hall of Fame and unlock Lady Right. Lady Right will only have a single offering when you first talk to her, the Unova Leaders Tournament. This tournament is exactly what it sounds like. It's a tournament full of all of the gym leaders of Unova. The rules are very similar to Lady Left's tournaments. All Pokemon participating will be set to level 25, you can use any Pokemon you want to, and you can use any items that you want. So again, you want to try to roll through this tournament with 2 Dialga and an Arceus all holding Dragon Gems? You go right ahead. That's allowed. Now, as I said, the Unova Leaders Tournament has a roster composed of all of the Unova Gym Leaders, and that's across both games. That means that this roster will include Cylan, Chili, Cress, Lenora, Berg, Alessa, Clay, Skyla, Bryson, Drayden, Sharon, Roxy, and Marlin. And this time, they all have actual teams to battle with. Again, using Roxy as an example, her team changes from this in Lady Left's tournaments to this in all of Lady Right's tournaments. Notice that she doesn't have doubles anymore. All of her Pokemon are fully evolved, and they all have held items. This is where the gloves start to come off, and your opponents start to pose an actual challenge. And the battles can't be predicted like they could in the last few, as anyone can seemingly win this tournament. Like, seriously, Cress? How'd you do that? However, seeing as this is the introduction of the harder fights, you're still only awarded 1 BP in singles and doubles, and 2 BP in triples and rotations. Once you win the Unova Leaders Tournament at least once, Lady Right will have more offerings. The Kanto Leaders Tournament, the Johto Leaders Tournament, the Hoenn Leaders Tournament, and the Sinnoh Leaders Tournament. Each of these are exactly what you think they are. The rules are even updated to match full facility rules. All Pokemon participating will be set to level 50. You can't use duplicate held items or duplicate Pokemon. Legendaries and Mythics are banned. The move Skydrop is banned, and the item sold you is banned. The Kanto Leaders Tournament has a roster of all of the Kanto Gym Leaders from Heart Gold and Soul Silver. That means you get to battle against Brock, Misty, Lieutenant Surge, Erica, Sabrina, Janine, Blaine, and Giovanni. I guess he decided to come out of exile for this tournament. Each of them have a full competitive team of mostly Cantonian Pokemon, but a few have an extra regional addition. Winning this tournament awards you with 2 BP for singles and doubles, and 3 BP for triples and rotations. The Johto Leaders Tournament has a roster of all of the gym leaders of Johto from Heart Gold and Soul Silver. That means that you get to battle against Faulkner, Bugsy, Whitney, Morty, Jasmine, Chuck, Price, and Claire. Again, each of them have full competitive teams that are mostly Johtonian Pokemon, but a few of them have some extra regional additions. Winning this tournament awards you with 2 BP in singles and doubles, and 3 BP in triples and rotations. The Hoenn Leaders Tournament has a roster of all of the Hoenn gym leaders from Emerald. That means you get to battle against Roxanne, Brawly, Watson, Flannery, Norman, Winona, Liza, Tate, and Juan. Each of them have their own competitive teams made up of mostly Hoennian Pokemon with an extra thrown in. Winning this tournament awards you with 2 BP in singles and doubles, and 3 BP in triples and rotations. And finally, the Sinnoh Leaders Tournament has a roster of all of the Sinnoh gym leaders from Platinum. So your opponents will include Rourke, Gardenia, Maylene, Crashaway, Fantina, Byron, Candace, and Volkner. One more time, each of them have full competitive teams made up of mostly Sinnoh Pokemon with the occasional add-on in the mix. Winning this tournament will award you with 2 BP in singles and doubles, and 3 BP in triples and rotations. Now, once you win the last 5 tournaments at least once, Lady Wright will have a few more options. The World Leaders Tournament, the Mix Master Tournament, the Rental Master Tournament, and the Type Expert Tournament. And if you're still here listening to me ramble, thank you for sticking around. Now let's get into this. I'll start with the Mix Master Tournament. This tournament uses the rules of the last 4 tournaments, but the mechanics are the same as the normal Mix Tournament. You and your opponent trade a Pokemon, or 2 in triples and rotations, and have at it. However, your opponents will be all of the Unova gym leaders with their competitive teams. Hopefully they don't take your ace, and good luck! Winning this tournament awards you 2 BP in singles and doubles, and 3 BP in triples and rotations. The Rental Master Tournament is also the same as the normal Rental Tournament, but the game uses the Super Trains pool to build your 3 random teams from. Otherwise, it's the exact same as before. Winning awards you 2 BP in singles and doubles, and 3 BP in triples and rotations. The World Leaders Tournament is huge. I mean, technically it's not any bigger than any other tournament you've done to this point, but the roster is huge. Every gym leader that you've had the chance to fight can be part of the bracket in this tournament. Yep, all 46 gym leaders can participate in this tournament, and each of them will still have their competitive teams. And winning this tournament awards you with a different amount of BP based on how well you did. Each Pokemon you had conscious at the end of a battle will get you 1 BP thrown in by the end. So let's say you steamroll your first opponent and you don't lose a single one of yours. That's 3 BP in the tin. Your next battle is a little tougher, and one of your Pokemon faints. That's 2 BP in the tin, netting you 5 total if you win. Your final match is much tougher, and you barely make it to victory with only a single Pokemon still conscious. That's 1 more BP in the tin, so your total payout at the end is 6 BP. So in singles, you could win anywhere between 1 BP and 9 BP if you just blast through. That also means that the larger formats have a possibility of a larger payout. Doubles can pay out anywhere between 1 and 12 BP, triples can pay out anywhere between 1 and 18 BP, and rotations can also pay out between 1 and 12 BP. It's up to you how much you want to try for. Next is the Expert Tournament. Actually, I'm going to put a pin in that one. Once you win the World Leaders Tournament at least 10 times, Lady Wright will have her final offering, the Champions Tournament. The Champions Tournament has a roster of all of the champions from all of the different regions, meaning you get to battle against the Indigo League champion, Red, the Indigo League champion, Blue, the Indigo League and Silver League champion, Lance, the Evergrande League champion, Steven, the Evergrande League champion, Wallace, the Lily of the Valley League champion, Cynthia, and the Virtus League champion, Alder. But yeah, the roster of this tournament is all champions. You get to fight the best of the best from each region, up to this point. And it's not just their teams from their own games. They've revamped their teams to really make the challenge apparent. Like Lance here. Instead of rocking up with 3 Dragonite like he used to, instead he has a team of mostly pseudo-legendaries with 2 almost pseudo-legendaries. And they're all like that. All of them have really challenging teams to fight against. And your rewards are the same as in the World Leaders Tournament. 2 BP for winning singles and doubles, and 3 BP for triples and rotations. We have one more tournament to talk about. The Type Expert Tournament. And this is such a fun idea. So when you choose the Type Expert Tournament, you then get to choose a type. The type you choose dictates who you fight, as well as what Pokemon you can use. For example, if you choose Water, you are only allowed to use Water-type Pokemon. Anything that doesn't have a Water typing in some way is banned. Your opponents are also specifically Water-type experts, those being Misty, Juan, Crasher Wake, Cress, and Marlin. And they will obviously only use Pokemon with a Water typing in some way. And that's how all of these tournaments go. They let you choose a type, and then you get to fight the gym leaders that specialize in that type. Now, occasionally, you'll get one of the randoms from the Driftvale tournament in the roster, as types like Bug only had 2 experts, in this case Bugsy and Berg. However, Dark-type had 0 experts, so all 3 of your opponents are randos from the Driftvale tournament. For winning any of these tournaments, you're awarded 2 BP for singles and doubles, and 3 BP for triples and rotations. And that takes care of all of the tournaments in the Pokemon World Tournament. But there's one last thing to talk about. The PWT is the actual area where the Pokemon World Tournament is located. In this area are a few different stalls you can visit. To the west of the building sits the Move Reminder and the Move Deleter, as well as the Hidden Power Checker, all of whom moved here from Mistralton City. To the east sits the Move Tutors. The tutor on the left will teach the Elemental Hyper Beams, and the tutor on the right will teach the 3 pledges. Moving inside the building, here you'll find the Exchange Corner. The offerings here are the exact same as they are in the subway, with the left attendant offering TMs and the right attendant offering vitamins, evolutionary items, the power items, and many held items. And with that, I am finally finished with the endgame of Black 2 and White 2. This entry left the subway intact in every way, but also added an entirely new option for players to try out and experience. The ability to face off against all of the old gym leaders and champions was a fantastic bit of fan service, letting players rematch all of their old challenges or discover new ones if they hadn't played before. And the new, arguably easier way of getting BP was a welcome addition. Quite a refreshing tweak to the normal endgame formula. Thank you for sticking with me and watching. Have a good night. Squeak. Smear. Flippin' chair.